Well, hello everybody, and today I'm not doing anything inside. I've decided to have a play with an old oil lamp that I bought from the car boot sale. Now I seem to keep collecting these, no particular reason. This one that I've got here is actually made in Germany. I'm not exactly sure the age of the one that I've got. They were originally made, this pattern of lamp was made from about 1937, and I think the one that I've got here is quite old. Now, the lamp says on the side of it, Frowo Nr.65, and Frowo is kind of an abbreviation. That was actually Froelich and Walter, and basically they put the names to get two names together and they came up with this word Frowo, and that's what's printed on the side of the lamp. Now, this one is in, I guess you could say, a fairly sorry state, but the rust on it is only really surface rust. So what we're going to do is we're going to just pull it apart and clean it up. Now, the first thing you want to do with these things before you start handling them too much is to take the glass globe out, because if you're going to do that, it'll end up falling out when you don't want it to, and you'll end up smashing it. So to do that, you basically just put your finger in the finger loop at the top of the lantern and you pull it up, and it's kind of spring loaded, and that'll just let you release the globe and then pivot the cage that the globe sits in out of the way. Now, because everything's really rusted up on this particular one, I'm just spraying a little bit of WD-40 and it just helps everything come apart. Just used a screwdriver there just to release a burner assembly, and what you can see, there's basically a fuel tank there that contains paraffin, or as the Americans call it, kerosene, and there's a little thumb screw on the side of it, and a little mechanism that allows you to raise or lower the wick. And that's just me there trying to get the filler cap off. It seems to have rusted off. So yeah, squeeze, squeeze, tug, tug. Is it going to come off? No. What am I going to do now? I'm going to try hitting it a bit more, see if that works. Sometimes it does. Yeah, but not this time. Close but no cigar. I think we'll put a bit more WD-40 on it and let it work its way in. Well, that failed, so let's see if the sight of me putting gloves on scares it into submission. No, didn't. Failed again. What am I going to do? Okay, giving up with that for now. So basically I'm just covering everything in washing up liquid, and I'm just scrubbing the worst of the surface rust off and any flaky bits. I'm just scrubbing away with a pan scourer. That's what I'm using at the moment. And it's a stainless steel pan scourer, and they seem to work quite well. The washing up liquid just acts as a bit of a lubricant, and it just means that you can just scrub away a little bit easier. It probably does help degrease it slightly, and I'm afraid this is just really quite a laborious job of scrub. I think I've said before, although it often looks a little bit boring and maybe you see that I take a lot of time cleaning things, I actually think that the time spent cleaning stuff is time well spent, because while you're concentrating on just scrubbing away a little area, your eyes are constantly looking round, and you can pick up little problems and find faults that you probably wouldn't find if you just plunged in right away. Okay, once I've knocked the worst of the rust off, I'm just transferring to some wire wool there, and that actually does a much better job of kind of cleaning the lamp. It polishes, takes the top layer of the paint off, and I think it also shines up the metal. We've got rid of a lot of the rust there, and basically just the wire wool will just help to polish up. The way that these are manufactured, as far as I understand, I'm pretty sure they're manufactured from something like just mild steel that's been zinc plated, and you can actually polish these up quite nicely just using the wire wool. And yeah, just take your time, give them a good polish. Okay, I'm just going to scrub away at the base here, and I think that's probably one of the weak points on these lanterns. You tend to find that if you're going to have a problem with them, with regards them leaking fuel, that it's around the base that they leak. So again, what I tend to do is I give them a really good clean, you know, scrub away as much of the surface corrosion as possible, and then I tend to just put some paraffin in them and leave them for half an hour or so to see if anything leaks out. I didn't do it on this occasion because the base looked pretty good. Okay, I'm using just a suede brush there, which is a brass brush. You could probably use any type of brush, that's what I had to hand. And I'm just giving I was just giving the burner a clean. I've washed all the washing up liquid off there. I took it over to the sink and I've rinsed it all out in just in water. So we've got rid of the old soap and detergent. And I think it is quite important to do that because washing up liquid has a lot of salt and other products in it, and they can actually promote rust and corrosion. So if you do use washing up liquid to clean something, make sure you really rinse it off properly, and then also wipe off the excess water as well, because if there is any traces of detergent left when it evaporates, you'll have less contamination left on the metal. So just dry it off with a rag. That's a burner assembly, and what you can do with that, there's kind of some little cogwheels inside there with little pointy teeth on them, and they actually press into the wick which sits in the bottom of the fuel tank, and basically the top of the wick is exposed through the top of the burner. Okay, you can see the little pointy wheels there. So basically if you turn the thumb screw in one direction, the wick will come out of the top of the burner, and if you turn it in the other direction, the wick will descend back down, and you can use that to set the height of the flame. And also when you finish using the lantern, you can basically just turn the wick down and the lantern will go out. This is an old wick that was in the lantern, and it's not too badly damaged. I could see that the end of it was a bit burnt though, and the reason that would have burnt is because somebody must have let the lamp run out of fuel, because the wick isn't actually consumed. Normally the wick will really not burn. It only burns for the first few seconds when you actually light the lantern, but most of the time the wick won't burn. It'll actually be the gas given off by the heated paraffin that actually burns. It's important to trim the wick before you start using your lantern. So basically all you need to do is you just feed some out. Feed enough out so you're clear of the damage, and then I just cut it straight across. Some people will tell you that the best thing to do is to cut it into a V shape, because that maximises the flame area, the surface area of the wick. I haven't found it makes any difference whatsoever, but if you want to cut it into an inverted V shape, a little arrow at the top, by all means knock yourself out. Okay, and you can see there that we're feeding one end of the wick back into the tank on the lantern that contains the paraffin, which is the fuel, and that burner assembly just fits under some little folded over flaps of steel. So yeah, there's no screws or anything. Okay, because I've cleaned everything up now, I just want to stop it going rusty again and offer it a little bit of protection, and I just use this wax here, and I think the wax that I'm using, it's quite a posh one. It's one of these fancy crystalline waxes which is endorsed by the British Museum or some such nonsense. Basically use any old wax that you've got to hand. You don't need to use too much really. And again, I'm working it in with, I think that's 00 grade, very fine wire wool, and just work the wax in all over the lamp. It will actually polish it slightly, and again it'll help just take a little bit more of the top layer of the paint, so if you have got any paint left it will actually just improve the look of the paint. But the other thing I think it does is it improves the contrast of everything. You can probably see as I'm polishing it, it is actually getting a little bit darker, but it also brings out the contrast between the polished metal and the remaining surface rust and actually the zinc plate. And it gives it that really old patina. And that's what I like about these things. If it was a brand new modern lamp, it wouldn't be as attractive to me. We've just washed the glass globe there in the sink, just again washing up liquid and rinsed it off. And again you just lift up the chimney, which is spring loaded, and let it go, and that will just clamp the globe down into the lamp so it won't fall out. This one's not a particularly good fit, everything's a bit loosey-goosey and wobbly, but don't worry about that, that's just the way they are. None of these things are perfect, everything's rather a crude fit, and that allows you to light it. I don't know if you can see there, I just press down with my thumb there. They do call that the thumb lever, and basically when you press down on the thumb lever, what happens is it pushes the glass dome up. What I'm trying to show you there is there's a finger loop at the top of the lantern. Now I've seen a lot of people actually string the lantern up by using that finger loop. Don't do that, because one, the top of the lantern gets very hot and it will burn through the string, but two, that's the control that you use to actually release the globe mechanism, and you'll end up with the globe falling out, so don't do that. Okay, the correct fuel for these lamps is paraffin or kerosene. There's a couple of different types there. One of them is, two of the little bottles, they're designed really for indoor lamps and they have less odour to them. It's still paraffin, it's just better refined, and it has a lower sulphur content. So basically it's often the sulphur that gives the paraffin its distinct smell. So if you actually use a low sulphur paraffin, it burns a little bit brighter and a little bit less smelly. Okay, all the warnings there. You know, don't pour the stuff into the ponds, don't drink it, don't gargle with it, don't feed it to your pets, don't shower in it, don't set it on a light unintentionally. Right, I'm back to just showing you there. That's the paraffin that you use if you want to use these lamps inside. I don't actually recommend using the lamps inside. It's not particularly from the fire hazard point of view. It's just that if you end up knocking one of these over, it could be a fire hazard. But normally, but the other problem is you're just going to spill the paraffin, and it's quite a smelly fuel, and once you spill paraffin on something, you'll never get it off. It doesn't evaporate. And because paraffin doesn't evaporate very easily, it doesn't light. You can, if you actually take a lit match and throw it into a bucket of paraffin, it'll actually go out. So in order to actually burn the paraffin, you've actually got to burn effectively the paraffin vapour, and to actually make the paraffin give off the flammable vapour, you actually have to heat it up. And the way that we do that in a paraffin lamp, is we use a wick. So what I've done there is I've just made a wick out of a bit of paper towel, and I've dipped that in the paraffin. And I'm actually using a shell there, which is, basically some of the very first lanterns would have been made using whale fat or something like that. And, the Inuit Indians and that used to heat their little igloos and things using oil lanterns that were fed with whale or what's the other thing? Seal blubber. But the interesting thing there is the wick that you can see, which is a rolled up piece of towel roll. Although you can see a flame coming off it, you'll notice the wick isn't burning, and that's because you're burning the gas that comes off the paraffin. Now I've actually got some petrol here, and one thing that you must never ever do is use petrol or alcohol or some other very volatile fuel. You must not use that in this type of lamp, because you will create a fireball. It will literally explode and be very dangerous. Now I'm just going to demonstrate how flammable petrol is. I'm not going to put the igniter close to it like I did before. I'm just holding it above it, and you're going to see it's going to actually flash there. Boom, gone, woof. If you do that with a lantern, your lantern will literally explode, because what's igniting there is the vapour. As I say, paraffin won't burn like that. Paraffin needs a wick. Once you've lit the petrol there, you cannot put it out. It's my experience that if that was paraffin burning from a wick, you could blow it out, but once petrol is alight, it's impossible to put out. So whatever you do, don't use petrol. You're going to end up killing yourself. Okay, I think that's nearly done now. That's not a particularly technical video. Pouring myself some red wine. I'm going to enjoy the rest of the summer's evening. Enjoy the heat wave. So I'm going to shut up, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching. That'll do.